Atlanta to the Atlanta Motor Super Speedway for it's not an intermediate, it's not a speedway, it's just Atlanta, baby. Get ready to go fast and furious on the back road with us as we queue up our picks for this week's race right now.
It's a non-points race, but it is a short race. Checkered flag. That's all this race is.
Two from the stage.
And the boys are back, and we are buzzing for Atlanta, baby. We are heading to what some are calling the biggest question mark in NASCAR this week. We got your DFS tiers, and yeah, we're going to have some best bets along the way. I'm Seth Woolcock, no Elliott Hicks tonight, but we do have our guy Rod Villagomez, and special guests. We have Mark Harris, a.k.a. Skybox NASCAR of the Layin Coin Podcast. Mark, how you doing? Heading fresh off the players for you, and right back up to Atlanta Motor Speedway. You've been a busy guy. How are we kicking it here on Thursday night?
Oh, we're doing great. We are still recovering from the players. I actually didn't get to watch the race last weekend because I was taking a nap on 17, but we're slowly starting to feel better. I liked Rod's intro of Hot Atlanta. It typically is Hot Atlanta, especially before the repave reconfiguration, but yeah, I'm heading north to Atlanta on Saturday morning to catch all three races, and I've already started packing, and I have packed more layers this week than probably any other trip in my life. So expecting the freeze, but stoked to be on here tonight. Talk some gambling, talk a little bit of DFS. Let's roll.
Let's get after it. Rod, how are you doing? Birthday boy, recent birthday for you. So you still buzzing off that, my friend?
Yeah, actually, I had a good birthday yesterday. I did pretty much nothing for most of the day, which is exactly how it should be anymore, especially when you're turning 47 years old. The least amount of things you can do on your birthday is absolutely the best.
Absolutely, man. Well, we appreciate you making time for us tonight. Appreciate everyone in the chat making time for us. If you guys want to give us a thumbs up if you enjoy this type of content, and subscribe to the channel if you're not already. Hey guys, let's before we move on and look to the higher and brighter tides of Atlanta, we do have to look back at some of the heartbreak that came with Phoenix here in the rear view. And this was a race last week in Phoenix, one that was no short of storylines on and off the track here. Dominated early by the Hendricks teammates William Byron and Kyle Larson, combined for 264 laps led early in this one. And then Kevin Harvick, we were riding that ticket hard. Everyone, I think, in the industry was riding it with us. And he had the long run speed. It looked like Kevin Harvick was going to pull out Phoenix. And then a late race caution ended up giving it to William Byron for back-to-back wins. Rod, how are the bets overall? How are the vibes despite our guy Harvick not pulling it through for us?
You know, the vibes were fantastic until the last few laps of that race. I mean, just like you said, Kevin Harvick, although he did cash the top 10 ticket, which was probably the one we all rode heaviest on that, outright was going to be a feel-good story. But, I mean, I had Larson as an outright winner, and obviously we know how that one ended up. William Byron back-to-back. I didn't think he could do it, but he just managed to be in the right place at the right time to keep himself around the front when all hell broke loose, and all hell broke loose at the end. And so here we are now, just broken hearts, broken tickets. But hey, Kevin Harvick gets a top 10. So, I mean, it's a good day there, right?
Absolutely. He snuck into the top 5 as well. So we at least walked away with one of our best bets on the week. Mark, how did you and the Layin Coin boys do last week?
Well, so I didn't get to see practice because I was at the players. However, I did lay 2 outright bets and before practice and qualifying, and they were Kyle Larson and William Byron.
Okay.
And so I got fortunate on Byron. However, my biggest bet of the year by far, besides my Sammy Smith to win a race, which cashed last weekend, was Kyle Larson to finish in the top 3 after practice and qualifying. I saw all of those 5 lap, 10 lap, 30 lap averages that Larson had. He was 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. I mean, he dominated practice. I didn't even have to watch it. So I was texting my buddies. I'm texting my girlfriend. I'm texting everybody. Put down on Kyle Larson, top 3. This is a lock. And I saw of course he finishes 4th, but I saw a stat that he ran inside the top 3 like 87% of the race, which is just bonkers to me.
Yeah,
that could lose. But I haven't gone back and watched the race. I wish I could tell you, but we did cash a Byron ticket, and we'll be watching this weekend. I can promise you that.
And I put out a tweet earlier this week, guys, and it really was just a reminder, as much as we can come to the table with the best data, the best bets, and the best lineups, sometimes shit happens here in NASCAR and hell breaks loose, even at some of these smaller, more predictable tracks like Phoenix. We were on Harvick. He was our number 1 driver, at mine at least, heading into last week. I was on Chris Bell, like white on rice as well. We didn't hit those 2 outrights. We didn't hit the Bell top 5, but we did hit Harvick top 5. The Bowman train kept us rolling here at a top 10, Chris Bell top 10. And then we did double down on Chris Buescher in the matchup department as well, over Almirola and over Grayson. So very happy, still a very positive week for us at the Backroad, but it could have been, winner, chicken dinner. But maybe that's this week as we head to Hot Atlanta, as our guy Rod calls it. Let's see what's in the forecast here.
Hey, Michael, it was only 20% chance of rain. I think we got all 20.
All right. Rod, you want to break this track down for us as we head into Atlanta and really what we should know from a history perspective?
Yeah, so basically, keep an eye out, though. The forecast is calling for rain on Friday night. That probably won't have anything to do with Saturday or Sunday. It's looking pretty good. But Friday night, there's going to be rain. So it's probably won't be much of a factor, but just keep an eye out, because if there's rain one day, if I've learned anything in California, doesn't matter what they say for the next couple of days. It's probably going to rain those days either. So just keep an eye out, even though the weather forecast is clear for Saturday and Sunday. But the Atlanta Motor Speedway is now turned into what we all lovingly know as a super speedway, as they have raised the bankings in the corners to 28 degrees. The backstretch and front stretch are both 5 degrees. This is a 260 lap race around this 1.5 mile paved track for 400 miles of nonstop chaos. This is one of those tracks that a lot of people are having trouble handicapping because of the fact that it's not a super speedway. It's not an intermediate. I'm seeing several tweets already today that are saying, hey, listen, we can't treat this like a super speedway per se. We can't treat this like an intermediate. This is its own beast. And so I think that exactly what Atlanta wants, in that it just wants to be its own unique track. And so it is. They've got that for sure. Taking a look at what happened here last year in the summer race, Chase Elliott won this race over Ross Chastain. There was 13 cautions for 64 laps. The margin of victory was under caution. But in the spring race here last March, it was William Byron winning over Ross Chastain by 1.45 seconds in this race. Average speed 126 miles an hour for a 3 hour and 57 minute race. Ran some overtime, 325 laps, 11 cautions in that one for 65 laps. So 46 lead changes in that one, and 6,439 green flag passes last spring. Wow. Yeah. And it really does show what this Phoenix track is. It is a little bit of a mystery, but it's going to be a damn fun time. I think a lot of live betting, I think, is going to come from us boys here. Brian Murphy yesterday on the NASCAR betting preview show. Mark, you were on that show. It was a big debate because he kind of approached it, Brian being one of the SHR engineers over there, saying that this is more of a hybrid package, that everyone was approaching this as a super speedway in 2022. And now he thinks it's going back to more of that 2019, 2020 feel of the low horsepower, high drag type of feel here. Mark, I know we were talking a little bit pre-show. You were kind of differing on that opinion. Are you expecting it to have a bit more of a super speedway package, and that's what teams are coming to play with? And maybe Brian's duping us a little bit here?
Yes. And I really look forward to when Brian comes on the show, the NASCAR betting preview show on Wednesday nights, because he gives out such great information. Some of it most of it is well over my head. But I just have this. The thoughts in my head are: we saw 2 races last year. We saw super speedway type racing. That's what I'm getting. It's not a super speedway. It's not an intermediate, but it's super speedway type racing. I think that will continue. Yes, we see in the trucks and we see Xfinity, it kind of looks like an early 2000s or like late 90s Cup race where they're like 1-2 car links and then like the worn out Daytona. Yes, could we see that in Cup? Yes, but okay, even if we did see that, I'm still going to bet it like a super speedway. I'm still going to play DFS like a super speedway. I still think there's guys at the bottom of the board that can make their way up in the draft. Regardless if we see pack racing 2x2 or, what we saw in Xfinity and trucks last year, I still think you have to treat this like a super speedway. And I think, my opinion, I'm going to differ from Brian. I think it's going to be the 2 wide, the bumps, they're going to be close to each other, the low horsepower, high drag. I think they're going to be close together. I could be sitting over here looking like a clown come Sunday afternoon, but I truly think that we are going to see very similar racing to what we saw last year. People have to realize, and Brian, he is in the shop, right? And I it's very difficult for me to disagree with him, but people have to realize that this is a super speedway package that they're bringing. The airflow is restricted. Like I feel like they could set up the car any way they want. It's still a super speedway package. So I don't know. I could go on for hours and hours about this, but I think it's going to be super speedway type racing.
Nope.
Where are you, Cody, at right now, Rod, at the NASCAR Gambling Podcast on this debate? Do you think it's like Mark and it's going to be more of that super speedway package that we saw back in 2022?
I mean, we're approaching every one of those 3 series as a super speedway anyways, just because of what we saw. Can it get strung out? Yeah. I mean, even Daytona at some points gets strung out when these guys get tired of getting, 2x2 and 3x3. We've seen it before where the lead pack breaks away and sort of plays nicely for a while until they got to get back to business. And that could happen in Atlanta too. But by and large, the racing that we saw last season dictates that we have to treat this like anything can happen and anything will happen on a super speedway rather. So, I mean, whether or not they think the package is indicative of this type of track or this type of race, we're still going to treat it like it, because it would be irresponsible not to take that into consideration as a bettor and a DFS player.
Yeah, and we're seeing that a lot in the books too. There's definitely some longer shots this week that we definitely as gamblers can take account, as same with our DFS lineups. We got Ryan Helms in the chat. Good to see you tonight, Ryan. Thanks so much for joining us, man. Gonna shout that guy out for sure. Some things we are factoring in heading into Atlanta. Atlanta 2 seems like it is the one race that we really should be heavily considering. Atlanta 1 as well. Daytona total speed ranking, I did factor that in a little bit. I know this isn't a true super speedway track, but I think it's good to see who was fast at Daytona earlier this season on our first super speedway race. Recent performance, I will be weighing that again. And then track history slightly. I think we should consider with some of these veterans, Brad Keselowski, Kevin Harvick, those types, but we can't overweight here with the track reconfiguration as of late. Any final notes here, Rod, from anything you considered in your data sets that maybe I didn't before we get into our tire tiers?
Not necessarily. Again, it's all about looking at Talladega, Daytona, and basically what happened in Atlanta last year. And really, the only one that you can really truly lean on is that Atlanta race, or the 2 Atlanta races from last year. And even then, you can't necessarily put a lot of weight on those, because that was the first year. That was everybody learning what was going on. Yeah. Now we've got another year under our belt with these cars. I mean, anything can happen more than anything now. So I think what we'll learn this spring will carry us into the fall Atlanta race, really, is, and maybe even beyond. But yeah, unfortunately, there's no other data set you can kind of lean on heavily for this, because it's just all sort of a nice little, if you want to just flip coins all over the place, you might just do that.
Absolutely. I got to throw this in there. So Daytona, I took your approach. I took, the approach of, let's look at track history. Let's look at performance. Let's look at speed in the last couple of years on these super speedways. Let's look at guys that don't wreck, that survive to the end. And I went a crisp 0 for 18 on my bets from Daytona. So I just want to get this out there. I said this last night. I am going straight to the bottom of the board when I open up the sports books, and I'm going up from there. So just want to point that out before we start throwing bets around.
You're staring Yaley and McLeod and Ware in the face. It's not making our way up. All right. All right, guys, let's break it down a little bit further here in tire tiers. All right, back with tire tiers. This is where we're going to go ahead and rank this using salary from DraftKings as well as our Fan Tracks leagues as well. So, Rod, I'm going to let you have it. We'll work our way down to Mark then. Who are you going with for building your lineups around? Who is that 101 for you this week as we approach Atlanta? Kyle Larson, obviously the top of the board once again here over on DraftKings. 11-2 for him, 10,900 for William Byron. The cream of the class right there. Are you differing from one of those two guys?
Well, I will tell you that if I do select Kyle Larson, my place at the NASCAR Gambling Podcast will be filled because Cody will fire me. There's no way I can suggest Kyle Larson in this one. But listen, his teammate William Byron, I don't think he's going to win a third straight, but I definitely think that he's going to be a factor in this. And listen, Hendrick is pissed now. I mean, the whole camp is just pissed off after what happened. They're not even in the top 20 anymore in standings, but they're going to be driving like men insane. And I think William Byron is going to put up a good show. Like I said, he may not win, but I think he's got the capability of leading you some laps. He's 10-9, right? So he's one of the more expensive drivers. You need him to lead laps. And I think this Hendricks camp has been so strong over the last 2 or 3 weeks that it wouldn't surprise me if they got out and led a bunch of laps in this race and got you a ton of points. And who knows where he's starting too. So that's another thing to keep an eye on. If he's starting in the back at 10-9, like if he's starting anywhere in the middle of the pack,
oh yeah,
you know, differential points and lap led, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you on this one. I'm giving into the Willie B hype right now, giving into the recent performance. He's who if I am building my lineup around one of these top 3-4 drivers here, William Byron is that driver for me. Mark, who for you is in this top tier?
Yeah, last week, the last few weeks, I've been Chevy heavy. I think a lot of people have been. But like I just said a couple of minutes ago, I don't know what information that I can use to confidently bet and play DFS with guys with Chevys, with guys that are fast. So a team that I've been eyeing to bet at just about any super speedway, including Atlanta, is Penske. And you have two guys at the top of the board. You got Logano and Blaney are 10-4 and 10-2 respectively. And then you got to go all the way down to find Austin Cindric at like 6,500. So I was waffling back and forth between Blaney and Logano, but I ended up on Blaney. We know that he's aggressive. We know that he's going to be at the front of the field. He's either going to finish in the top 5 or he's going to wreck. And the actual reason why I chose Ryan Blaney in this scenario is that sexy white body armor scheme. Give me Ryan Blaney, driver 1, build your lineup around Ryan Blaney. Everybody knows he's going to be at the front of the field. Don't overthink it.
Okay. I like that play there. I'm going to go with Ross Chastain for my first play here. And this is simply, Ross is really good at super speedways this point in his career. He has proved that he can race with the best of them. We know that there's going to be some close calls. We know there's going to be some times where you're saying, oh shit, holding on to your bridges. But at the end of the day, he got second at both these races last season. He showed a lot of speed at Daytona as well. I think Ross Chastain's a little bit of a value at 10,000. I do like Blaney as well, Mark, and he came back in my models very high. However, I will take a little $400 discount for a guy who's averaging just under 39 DraftKings points right now per contest.
Yeah, so for me, I love the Blaney pick, by the way. It's just got to be due. Like, he's due at some point, right?
Put it out there.
I've been saying that for a year and a half, though, Rod.
That's true. That's true. And so is Cody. So I think you're all in agreement there. I love Chastain as well. That's a good one. I'm going to throw up the podcaster that's got the world talking right now, and that's Denny Hamlin in that 11 car. Very, very interesting surroundings about him. Obviously, he suffered a pretty wicked fate last spring, getting crashed out, but he was in the top 5 at the end of stage 1. He was a fast car. And in the spring, he didn't do much better anyways. He finished 25th after a 16th place. But Denny Hamlin, we faded quite a bit last year, right? And right up until about the after Atlanta, I think, is when he started to get things back together again. And this year, look, he could have had a good finish last week. In fact, I think he would have had a good finish, except for the last couple of laps in which he just finally decided, we're not going to get a good finish. Chastain's not going to get a good finish. Go with God, everybody, and I'm going to let and see what happens. So I think he kind of robbed himself. Obviously, it may not have meant a whole lot to him financially or whatever, because that fine, if you listen to his podcast, he's dropping $50,000-$60,000 on whatever those guns are that he's shooting around at each other. But I'm just saying, like, Denny Hamlin, he's playing with house money, and I think he's going to have a good finish here and redeem himself for what he did last week.
Yeah, 9,800, a little more of a value as well. And yeah, we haven't really talked about it, but I appreciate you guys bringing up those suspensions, because man, it is a wild time in NASCAR, and a little controversy I think never hurt anyone, especially for a sport that's kind of been dry it for a while. So Mark, any thoughts on that and your next driver as well?
That's what I've been saying. It's like, okay, we've seen a little bit of decline in viewership this year, but this sport we have is on an incline, and NASCAR is going to govern these guys on speaking the truth. Like, yes, I guess it's a slippery slope, but I have no problem with him saying that. I have no problem with anybody stepping a little over the boundary line, but I am going to step a little over the boundary line with this next pick. I'm going driver number 1. I'm going to the top tier, but it's probably not a guy that you guys are thinking about or a lot of people are thinking about, especially in the DFS world. But Bubba Wallace, he's sitting at 8,300 right now. We know that he had great finishes at Talladega, won a race, finished in the top 3 the next year. He's aggressive. You know, at Daytona, he was leading the race, got put in the wall by his manufacturer teammate. And I don't think he's going to be that chalk. I hope I said that right, because I'm learning this DFS still, but I feel like I'm holding it down over here. So Bubba Wallace is going to be a guy that's going to be in a good number of my lineups this weekend, and I just don't. I think people are going to overlook him because it has been a couple years since he's had good finishes at super speedways, but we know he's not going to be a guy that's going to ride in the back. He's going to be up there. He's an aggressive driver. And I said this at Daytona, and I said I wasn't going to use this, but he is one of those guys that survives to the end. He has a very low DNF rate at super speedways. So I do like Bubba Wallace, especially at that number, 8,400.
The only thing that gives me a little bit pause on Bubba Wallace here heading into Atlanta is that first spring race last year. God awful at Atlanta, and I have no idea why. I would actually like to check out maybe more of why his speed ranking is so low, but it's like 31. It is god awful. So that's the only thing that gives me pause, but he was very fast in that fall race. So I think it might be a little bit of a reach here, Mark, if we're being honest, but
I agree with that. I'm not disagreeing with that. Okay. I mean, I feel like at DFS, for me at least, I got to go outside the box, because when I first started playing DFS, I was the chalk guy. I was like, oh, yeah, this guy's going to run good. This guy's going to run well. This guy's got huge place differential. And then I look, and all my guys are like 40% plus ownership.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I feel like I got to step outside the boundaries a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, every time we go to Talladega or Daytona, Rod, we know that Bubba is going to be very, very well rostered. So this is one point you can get on him, and it's going to be a little less chalky.
Well, and then if he turns out like he did last year in the fall, like you talked about being fast in the fall, I mean, Bubba Wallace improved from a 30. I just had it here. Hold on, that's the spring race. He improved from somewhere in the 30s, a 32nd place start to a 14th place finish. That is massive place differential for a DFS lineup. So you definitely could do very well if he does that again this spring. All right, my next driver, might as well put him in the 2 tier, because I think he's assured a top 10 finish, and that is that 4 car of the Kevin Harvick. I feel like I'm just the torchbearer for Kevin Harvick, and might as well slot him in all the time. But yeah, I mean, look, top 10 finishes is what Kevin Harvick does, right? And that, at least you can get a top 10 finish out of him each and every week. He did have a 12th place finish here in the summer race of 2022. But he did have I'm looking at it. I think he got actually in some trouble and didn't get a good finish out of last year. But that was the beginning of the year when Kevin Harvick was not necessarily running the best anyways. He did pick it up there toward the end of that year. So I'm still not afraid. I still think Kevin Harvick could have won that race last week rather. I think he should have won that race last week. He had great speed in the long runs. Hopefully they give us a few of those in Atlanta, and that 4 car can do wonderful things in the front, maybe lead a few laps for us, and then ultimately finish in the top 10.
So I wasn't originally, I'm very high on Kevin Harvick in the betting world, and we'll talk a little bit about it later, but I really didn't think about playing him DFS, but I'll back up your pick here. I like Kevin Harvick, not necessarily from any sort of track comparison perspective, but the number that he's at. I mean, DFS and betting, the number I feel like should just be so much higher at DFS and lower in betting. I don't know how you price a veteran quite like this. So love the Harvick pick.
Cody and I talk about it all the time. I mean, he's $9,300. He's under 10K, and he just solidified. I mean, it's always a good DFS play. He's never a bad one, and he's always in that 89, 87. Now he's 93, which I mean they finally kind of got right, but they still didn't put him in 10K. Whatever, man. Take the free square.
We got Rod's brother in the chat saying he's just here for Rod's weekly Harvick pick, baby. He knew it. He knew it was coming. Appreciate you tuning in while you're cooking dinner, man. And honestly, one thing I will, not to give any Harvick any more love here, but he is averaging the second most DraftKings points and coming in at 9,300. That's a very good value you're getting on Harvick. I don't think he's going to rock the world. I don't think he's going to win this race like he had the chance to last week, but I think he will be a solid DFS contributor. I'm going to go back to he was my little huckleberry last week. I'm going to go back to him. That's Chris Bell, guys. Coming in at a very, very nice price here, 9,500. I think he's a guy you can keep building lineups around, and I'm going to put him in the driver 1 tier. I think that's where this man belongs. Number 1 in speed last year at this track in the fall, the heaviest track at Atlanta that we're weighing for total speed rankings, and he was top 10 as well in the spring. So I like both of these tracks coming in for Chris Bell. How do you guys feel about Mr. Bell?
I'll tell you something about Chris Bell. I was at the Atlanta spring race last year, and he would have finished second or third behind Byron if he didn't go by the yellow line. So, stats don't say everything. Ryan from My Fantasy Race pointed it out in his asterisk report this week. Christopher Bell is a slept-on super speedway racer. He finished in the top 3 at Daytona this year. He could have had another top 3 at Atlanta 1 last year. Love Christopher Bell.
And that's the issue with Bell, Mark, is exactly what you put out there. His finishes at super speedways are not good. Even at this track, they're very mediocre. But given the heaters he's on and given some of those asterisks, I like him this week. Mark, want to throw it back to you for your next pick, man.
Yeah, and I there's a guy on the show that's not here tonight that's really going to love this one. And I just told you that I wasn't going to go back to the Chevy train, but you guys took some of my guys. So I'm going with Alex Bowman. We know that the Chevys and Hendrick are going to have the raw speed. I don't think these Louvenders or whatever the hell they're called are going to affect him. It clearly didn't affect him at Phoenix last week. And the guy sits on the pole for 5 or 6 straight years at Daytona, breaks the record, et cetera, et cetera. We know they're going to have speed. Currently, he's sitting at, just had it up, at 9,100. I think, I'm going for the second. Thanks for putting in the second tier. That's where I was going. Not a guy that I'm going to base the majority of my lineups around, but I feel like if there's any sort of safe pick or bet, it's going to be with the Hendrick and the Chevy guys. So I like me some Alex Bowman, and he's a top 10 freak. I know it doesn't come into play necessarily this week in Atlanta, but my God, these books keep giving us,
plus
even
money
on. It's absurd. So I'm going to continue to ride this Bowman train.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We'll talk a little bit more about that later as well. Rod, where are you going here?
Believe it or not, give me Tyler Reddick in that driver 2 tier. I'm taking a swing here. Just basically kind of saying that I think Tyler Reddick is going to improve on what he's done so far this season. And really, I'm basing a lot of this off of what Kurt Busch was able to do in this race. He actually took this car to, a 3rd place finish last spring. and that was a 45 car, basically the same type of car he's going to drive now. It's been a rough start for Tyler Reddick. I mean, the guy has barely been able to do anything. He hasn't gotten his feet underneath him in this 2311 car. So I think the tide's about to turn. I honestly think that Tyler Reddick is going to be able to pick himself up off of the ground and hopefully do something. I mean, I feel like he's that guy, or we're that meme with the guy with the stick is like, do something, Tyler Reddick. He finished third last week, right? Found his way up to a third place finish. This could be the coming out party for that 45 car, and I definitely think I'm going to take a chance on him in DFS because I think a lot of people have soured on him, and I'm not necessarily all that scared at $8,700. I feel like that's a good tier 2 driver price.
Yeah, I want to put Joey Logano in this tier as well. I just doing a little cleanup, a little housekeeping here. Joey Logano, Kyle Larson, I think they belong in this tier. They're obviously priced to be in this tier, or the driver 1 tier. Is there a reason that we're all off Larson? No one's talking up Larson here, Mark, that you can think of?
Well, I am anti Larson. I fade Larson on super speedways. The reason is if you go back, I don't have his stats pulled up in front of me, but he either wrecks or he has an electrical issue or it just speeding penalty. His kryptonite is super speedway racing.
Except at Daytona this year.
Okay. Didn't he get wrecked on the final lap or whatever?
I think he still walked away.
Maybe he might have. Okay. So exclude Daytona of this year. I include it. I refuse to bet on Kyle Larson in any form or fashion, especially what is he at, like 11-2, 11-1. I mean,
yeah, he did finish 18th at Daytona too. It's looking like so. Yeah, exclude that comment a little bit. Rod, any interest here in Mr. Larson or Joey Logano for you?
No, Larson. Larson's the weakest of that stable. I know Hendrick is fantastic and has been, but on super speedways, look, I know there's things I'm not good at and I stay away from. Larson's one of those on super speedways. You just can't trust him there.
I love that comment.
Okay. All right. Mark, who you got for us now?
Yeah, so I think these two guys, I'm only going to give out one, but I think they're right in the middle of the road.
You can put them both out. You can throw them both out. All right,
let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do both of the RFK guys. We saw the sheer dominance at Daytona this year. They won both the dual races last year at Daytona. These guys, another team, just like Penske, is going to run at the front. They're not going to hang back. They're going to lead laps. They're going to work well together. And that's all I need to know as a DFS player. I would even put Chris Buescher at driver 3. Actually, swip him. I would go Brad K at 3 and Buescher at 2 just because of the price. Buescher is 1,000 points less than Brad Keselowski, and I think that opens the door to add a couple of other guys at the top. So that's the reason why I flip-flopped them. But I do love RFK this week.
All right. If we're already dipping down to the 3, I feel like we have to mention Josh Berry right now in that driver 3 tier. Rod, I'm sorry if I stole it from you. He's the last guy out of that Hendricks camp. We know how good Chase Elliott has been at Atlanta. That could just be a Chase Elliott thing, but there could be something with this number 9 team as well here at Atlanta. He's been serviceable. 29 average DraftKings points for him so far. Rod, what do you think about Josh Berry, 7,300, my man?
I love that. The fact that he climbed his way into a top 10 finish last week after just an abysmal week the week before. He's scary. I mean, he was great in those junior motorsports cars last season in Xfinity on the super speedways, and I just feel like he's got it here now, and he's got a chance to show it. Cody continues to bring up anytime we bring up his name that even Dale Jr. is like, this guy's a future Cup Series driver. He just needs the ride. What better ride can you have than the top of the line Hendrick Motorsports cars to show what you can do? So this week is going to be a big proving ground for him in whether or not he's going to be in the Cup Series more often or all season next year.
All right.
I got some quick thoughts on Josh Berry. I'm not against him and I'm not fading him, but I'm also not very high on him. And the only reason is it's not a great basis, but the 7,300 number I don't love. I would have loved to see him, sub 7. But this track is so narrow and so tight, and the first laps that he's going to run in a Cup car at Atlanta are going to be in the race. And I just feel like he's going to be soft pedaling it. And I've been, consistent with the guys that I want to bet on, that I want to play are aggressive drivers. And I just haven't seen enough to bet Josh Berry and put him in my lineup. So that's just me. That's just how I feel. Personal opinion.
Totally get that. Totally get the a little bit of remorse there, a little bit of skepticism with Josh Berry. I'm going to be on him with Rod here. Rod, who else do you think belongs in this driver 3 or the driver 2 tier still?
I'll go ahead and put this guy in the driver 3 tier. It's AJ Allmendinger. I love me the Dinger. I love that 16 car. I love his price, $6,300. And if all things are considered chaos in this place, I'm okay with throwing a little bit his way, only because, he hasn't had the most fantastic start to the season. He did finish 6th in Daytona, though, so he snuck his way up to a 6th place finish after a 29th place start. That's a lot of place differentials. He actually even led a lap in that, had some fast laps in that race. So that's a fantastic DK day for you, for a guy like that. Not the greatest track history as a cup racer at Atlanta, but as an Xfinity driver in the 2 races that he was here for the Xfinity race, he finished 3rd and 10th in the new configuration in the Xfinity series. Same colleague cars, right? But obviously different setups. It's not that he can't run super speedways. It's just that the cup cars were a little bit much for him last season after coming back from part-time driving. So yeah, give me AJ in this instance.
Why I like AJ Allmendinger in fantasy right now is because he's never going to be a guy who probably wins you a week, but he's never going to be the guy that tanks your lineup. He consistently has good finishes, averaging just about 26 DraftKings points per week. So I really like Dinger here in this driver 3 tier. Mark, anyone else for tier 3 here?
Yeah, I mentioned his name earlier, and I cannot put him lower than the 3rd tier, and that's Austin Cindric. You got the Penske magic. You have, he won the 500 last year. We know that, but he also had the 3rd best average finish on super speedways last year. Yeah, you could say, okay, it's because he won a race. Well, yeah, so did 5 other guys on super speedways, and he still had the 3rd best behind Chase Elliott, and I can't remember who was second, but his price, just like Rod was talking about AJ Allmendinger, Cindric's sitting at 6,500 right now and could easily go out there and lead a bunch of laps. It depends on where he starts to really get those, I guess they're called dominator points. I'm learning here. And I love the price. I mean, you could play around with a lot of different lineups with Austin Cindric doing well this week. So I do love the Penske love this week.
And I'm going to be right in that tier with you here. I'm going to go down to 6,000 for my guy, Corey LaJoie. And I'm talking about a guy who is right now, after the Hendricks deductions, 15th in points, Corey LaJoie. He is no longer the Corey LaJoie of old. However, the old Corey LaJoie, 5th place at Atlanta 1, might have won that fall race as well. So Corey LaJoie, I think, is DraftKings ever going to adjust his price? God damn. Like finally he's above Ty Dillon finally, but still not enough. So Corey LaJoie 6,000. It might be a little bit chalky this week, but I'm willing to eat that chalk on Mr. LaJoie and that number 7 Spires car.
Yeah, you got all the love from Cody on that one. He is all about stacking pennies with LaJoie. It's just he's betting every single angle on LaJoie that he can. In fact, our show sheet is full of LaJoie, so all good on that front. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say the fun thing about LaJoie is like you can stack the top of your lineup then when you have guys like him, Dinger, if you want to get a Haley in there, Cindric, like these guys around that 6K range, they really do give you a lot of leverage. So you can go out, you can play a Ross and a Denny or a Kyle Larson and a Bowman, one of those stacks, which that's kind of what I prefer to do in DraftKings. I like taking some dart throws, especially here at Atlanta. But Rod, go ahead, my man.
Can you believe that we are how many drivers deep into this already? I'm not bad at math, but that 8 car is still sitting right there. Is it that we just don't love him in this 8 car? Go ahead and put him up in the 3.
It's a big number. 3. It's a big number, Rod.
It is a big number. I mean, I cannot believe that Kyle Busch is still sitting there. We would have been talking about him in the 1 tier if his season had actually started the way it was supposed to in that 8 car. So many issues, whether it was self-inflicted or just a bad car setup or all kinds of crazy stuff happening to that 8 car. I'm so disappointed in his performance, but this is Kyle Busch. He is still one of the greatest drivers on this track. I believe it's very hard to keep him down for 4 races in a row in a season before he gets things figured out. Sure, he had a long, hard talk with his entire team that this is not how Kyle Busch runs races. So whatever the heart to heart, whatever the pumped up message was this week, I think they get it. I think they find the setup, and Kyle Busch will come through for you in your DFS lineups.
Okay. I know we have a nice even tier here grid right now, but I'm going to screw it up. I think Martin Truex Jr. belongs in this tier as well, guys. 11th here in the fall, 8th in the spring. It's not a sexy play, but I think he's another one of those plays. He's not going to win you your week, but he's not going to lose you your week either, averaging just about 40 DraftKings points per week. I'm going MTJ. Mark, back to you, my friend.
Yeah, I was actually just looking up a couple stats with MTJ, thinking I was going to take him next because his number is favorable. He's in the 8,000 range, around 8,500, and he is loaded up on top 10s in his career at super speedways. The luck recently hasn't been on his side, but I like the Truex bet. Let's go down to tier 4, and the only reason this guy is tier 4 for me is the chalkiness. I'm high on this guy on the betting services, but that's Michael McDowell. Yes, he won a 500 a couple years ago, but I said this the other night, he's got 3 top 3s on super speedways since then. So the last 2 seasons plus a few races. He's so cheap. He's so cheap this week. He's below LaJoy. I mean, he's below a lot of guys. 5,700. So I feel like, if he doesn't have the best qualifying effort, if he's starts 30th, if he starts 28th, 25th, he's going to be so chalky. So a guy that I want in my lineup for the upside potential, but he's coming down a few notches for the chalk potential as well.
I'm a little bit skeptical on Michael McDowell this week. I think that's another one of those chalky plays that I think I'm going to have to avoid. Rod, any thoughts on the number 34 team here?
Yeah, I think you're a little more confident in him than I am. It's not that he can get it done because, listen, we've just talked about the fact that anything can happen and will, but I don't know. Maybe it is because it's not the sexy name. I'm like, if you want to win money, listen to everybody else but me.
No.
I mean, 5,700, you are getting a deal over there on DraftKings, so I don't mind that there. I'm going to go Erik Jones in this driver 4 tier as well. I think he belongs in this tier. The guy had a top 5 finish here last fall. That's one of the races we're really weighing heavily, and he's been terrible to start this season. Absolute terrible. He has sunk your DraftKings lineups. He has sunk your bets if you have bet on him. 7,500 though. That's right in that Josh Berry lineup, or that Josh Berry range. I think Erik Jones could be sneaky this week, guys. I mean, I know it's a bad start to the season, but overall, top 10 total speed ranking at Daytona, so he can run these tracks. We've seen him win these types of races. Mark, how do you feel about the number 43 this week?
Well, there's no doubt that his season has started terribly, but that's in the rear view, right? We're looking at the windshield now, and Erik Jones has been in position time and time again to win on super speedways. His season's got to turn around. Like last year, Denny Hamlin started the season I know it's apples to oranges, but started the season so poorly. And I'm like, I'm going to keep betting Denny Hamlin until his season turns around. And we saw so much promise out of the 43 last year that I think his season will turn around. I do not think that this season is going to continue down its path. But I want to add to the tier 4 and a guy that, once again, I know there's some juice left on the board. There's some Stewart-Haas guys. There's Justin Haley. But I'm going to go Ryan Preece. He's cheap. He's 6,800. And the reason why I'm taking Ryan Preece is I like Stewart-Haas in general this week. The books are disrespecting them, except for Almirola. He's 30-1 on the outright side. But Ryan Preece, I think it's pretty evident to us that the only chance he has to win is either a super short track, maybe Martinsville, maybe Bristol, or a super speedway. In Daytona, he was in the mix for the stage 2 win. I think he finished second. And I think that's going to resonate with them and say, okay, one of our few chances to win a race is going to be on a track like this. So I don't mind playing Ryan Preece this week at a low number.
Ryan Preece will do. Rod, want to throw it back to you. How do you feel about any of these tier 4 drivers we maybe mentioned, and anyone you want to add as well?
Let's throw Daniel Suarez into the mix. That's a name that's not down there. You look at what he did last year on this track, a 4th place finish in the spring, a 6th place finish in the fall. Sneaky good on this new Atlanta track. Finished 7th at Daytona, started 24th, finished 4th at Fontana, started 7th, started 24th in Vegas, finished 10th. Those are 3 solid DFS days from a guy who is right in that 70. I had him right there. Too many tabs open in my head. Yeah, starting in that $7,800 range. I love that place differential. Last week, kind of a hiccup, right? An 11th place start, 22nd place finish. But I think Daniel Suarez is poised to have a very solid DFS day for you, especially after doing so well last season on this track.
Okay. I'm going to go here with Justin Haley, and I think he really does belong in this number 4 tier, guys. Justin Haley last season at this track, 7th place in the fall. What did he do in the spring? 11th place. Justin Haley's been super solid, averaging just about 28 DraftKings points per week here. You're getting him at a discount, 6,100. I'm going to be playing a lot of alliance with Corey LaJoie and Justin Haley so I can get those bigger names in my lineup here. Mark, any thoughts on Haley, Suarez, or anyone else you want to add to driver tier 4?
Well, I do like Justin Haley. He's got a win in the bank at super speedways, but I feel like he has the same argument as AJ Allmendinger. And I was going to say when we were talking about Dinger, but I think it's evident to Justin Haley as well. The Colic guys are like superheroes on super speedways. It's like nothing I've ever seen before for the startup team to be, this good on super speedways. And AJ Allmendinger even comes out in his radio interviews and his TV interviews and says, I hate this type of racing. But you got the show of Chris Rice and Matt Collig and these badass fast cars. I actually wouldn't mind putting Justin Haley in the 3rd tier just because of his number, but he absolutely deserves to be on this board. So I don't mind that. I kind of want to, if this is within the rules, I kind of want to bring up a guy and ask you guys a question and say, why do you guys think that Ricky Stenhouse is fallen down so much? Do you think that it was a one-hit wonder? Do you think he's going to be chalky? I mean, he's sitting at like 68, 6,700 right now. Any interest in Ricky Stenhouse?
I'm not interested in Ricky Stenhouse, but I'm more interested in LaJoie, Allmendinger, Haley, those guys a little bit cheaper of a price tag. He is averaging, 35 DraftKings points, so he is getting it done on the season. A lot of that coming in at Daytona. It's just not a sexy name for me this week. Rod, any thoughts on the number 47?
So you come out, you win the first race of the season, you follow it up with a 12th place finish. That's great, right? You think Ricky Stenhouse, this is his time. Well, then you turn in a 24th place finish and then a 19th place finish. It's ho-hum. That's who I think he really is. He's that mid-pack driver that found a way to just blossom in that first race and really should not have won. Honestly, if we're all being honest, that should not have been a Ricky Stenhouse win. Yes, he won. Yes, it doesn't matter how, but I mean, can we say that this was because he was the best car on the track?
No.
Yeah, no, you're right. I will say this. He did lead 22 laps in the Atlanta spring race last year, finished 4th in stage 1. And then I think he ended up wrecking, but yeah, he did end up wrecking because he's got a pair of 31st. At least he's consistent.
Hey, we'll throw him in that. You want him in that 4 tier, Mark? Is that where you want him? Or you want him in the 5ers?
Yeah, let's go 5. Let's go 5.
Wine or dine or 5er, baby.
Yeah.
There we go. Rod, who else sticks out to you on this board? Because there's not much, honestly, that I'm going to be playing in my lineups that I see left here on the board. Anything that intrigues you? A couple big names still, Briscoe, Almirola, and Austin Dillon kind of leading that pack.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to swing at Almirola, he did have a top 10 finish here last year.
He's been so bad this year.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not interested in him in that, but I wouldn't put him in a tier. If you really wanted to, if you wanted to do anything with like Ty Gibbs, I mean, again, he's kind of there as a person. So, he has
a car.
He has a car. He's on the car. He just hasn't made it yet. And Ty Gibbs is only 5,900 too. So that's somebody that if you want, he won't lose you points, I don't think, unless he wrecks. But yeah, anybody else, I don't even feel comfortable. I don't know why Dylan's still there, but it just goes to show we don't feel comfortable, I suppose.
It just hasn't been consistent for Austin Dillon this season so far. He is averaging decent points, but where he is, I like Barry better. I like Suarez better. I like Erik Jones better in that tier. Any thoughts on the rest of these guys on the board here, Mark, and how we can maybe sort through them here for the tiers?
Yeah, I think you have to throw, in my opinion, you got to throw Harrison Burton in the 21. Yes, just like Stenhouse, he's been terrible. Okay, bad, terrible. It cost a lot of us a lot of money last week. I'm pissed at him, still pissed at him. Okay, but I feel like I'm like a broken record. I've said this 5 times already. He's so cheap, right? I mean, he could start in the back of the pack and, race of attrition. Everybody's wrecking. And here comes Harrison Burton with a top 5 finish out of nowhere. It's possible. You can't count it out. So I think Harrison Burton's worth a little coin.
Okay. All right. I'm going to go ahead and throw Dylan and the number 14 car in this driver 5 tier. These are kind of the guys that we really aren't interested in playing, but they are on the board. Here we have in the chat, we got Rod's brother saying Ty Gibbs exists. that's his career highlights, and Harrison Burton owes me one.
That's a true comment there, buddy.
We got Ryan saying RCR this weekend. He's pounding that RCR train. All right. I respect that. That'll about do it, though, for tire tier, guys. I think we got the big names out of the way. Let's go ahead and jump over to our betting cars here in our next segment with Parking Garage Props. All right, Parking Garage Props. We're going to first start how we do every Parking Garage Props and critique the books. How did you guys enjoy it this week? Atlanta, it is a different track. So, Rod, what did you find in the books? Were you digging it? Were you not digging it?
I was digging it for the most part. I think the odds are not what I expected them to be. I kind of thought that the books would be a little bit more loose with these odds as super speedways, but maybe they got the message that it's not a super speedway race. So they tightened them up a little bit. But I think all in all, I'm happy with the head-to-heads. I love a couple of them that I saw, little revenge head-to-heads here. I love when they do that. But yeah, I think overall, not bad. Not bad. I'm not necessarily hating. I just wish they would get him up sooner. That's my only complaint. Get these odds up sooner, books. Don't kick around. We want to get them now.
Yes. Yeah. I feel like I'm checking my phone every morning when I wake up early in the week. I enjoyed the odds this week. I thought they did a pretty good job, but man, like I just see so many of these trap bets sitting out there right now with these odds boosts and these specials that are just driving me crazy. They're just so low and not profitable for some of the things that you need to bet them on. So that's my one critique I have a little bit. Mark, any thoughts on what you're seeing down there in Florida?
Yeah, once again, I don't have a strong opinion either way. I think the books pretty much got it right. I don't think anybody should be below 10-1 on a super speedway type track. William Byron's currently sitting at 9-1 on Barstool.
Yeah.
I disagree with that. The top 10 market is totally broken. It's not even worth betting on most books. But I did feel like once you got past that 18, 20-1 number, I felt like there was some mispriced guys, and we'll go over that here in a little bit. But I'm overall content, and retweet what Rod said. Okay. Monday afternoon would be nice.
All right, well, let's start right there. Let's go into our outright market. Mark, what were you seeing that was intriguing? Obviously, Atlanta, this is one that, hey, do we take a flyer on Corey LaJoie? Do we take a flyer on Ryan Preece? These guys who have some speed on these super speedway type tracks.
Well, I guess I wouldn't classify this as a flyer, but I think it's mispriced, and it's a big number. And I mentioned his name already, and Rod's going to love it. Happy Harvick. Okay, he's sitting at 25-1. Anybody with a brain that watches NASCAR knows that Kevin Harvick has a legitimate shot and the ability to win a race of this caliber, win a question mark race, win a super speedway race. And for the books to put him out at 25-1, I just thought was bonkers. So another guy that's sitting at 25-1 is Martin Truex. You guys touched on him the last segment. Another guy, another experienced guy. He's a fender away from winning a couple 500s. And I just think, I told you this at the beginning of the show. I used all the numbers in the world, all the attrition numbers, the survival numbers for Daytona, and it didn't work out for me. So you know what? We're betting numbers this week, and those are the two guys that I started with. Those have already been bet, and then we'll keep going down the board after you guys.
Okay, Rod, where are you at right now? Whether it's top of the board, bottom of the board, any type of the board that you like in the outright market.
I still don't know how any book in their right mind could put Kyle Larson as a favorite, especially at 10-1 at the top of a book. That is a trap bet if ever there was a trap bet right there.
And he's got the highest handle this week. It's absurd.
Is it people just clicking at the top of the list going, yes, I want that one. Yes, I want that one. No.
They think he's due. That's the argument. He's due. That's what you're going to get from Kyle Larson.
Well, okay, so there was a tweet that I saw earlier, and I'm sorry if I can't remember exactly who it was from, but they said that people are betting sports all wrong and that you find the plays and then find the odds. But I don't think that works very well in NASCAR because you got to know the odds because you have to know what you're betting on. I mean, the plays are there, yes, but if the odds don't match the play, then you got to stay away, just like Kyle Larson. Ooh, that rhymes. But for me, what I'm looking at actually is, and I brought him up earlier too, Tyler Reddick. Tyler Reddick is 22-1, right? No other place. And the research will tell you to stay away from Tyler Reddick, which is why the books have him right now at 22-1. But you dig deeper, like I said this time, he's slowly increased his finishing positions. Tyler Reddick can win a race. He won a couple of them last year, right? So all it takes is for him to be able to get on that swing, and maybe last week was that swing. And I think 22-1 is kind of a misprice for a guy like Tyler Reddick, who just like you said with Harvick, possesses the capability of winning a race. He's in a new car. He's in a new situation. Once that clicks, it's over, right? And I think this could be a race where that clicks. And at 22-1, I like taking a little flyer on that.
Okay, a little sprinkle for Tyler Reddick for Rod there. Mark, how do you feel the rest of this outright market? Any other names we should be considering here, maybe lower down on the books?
Yeah, I wouldn't consider it once again realistic, but the numbers speak to me. Okay, you got guys like Harrison Burton of Penske affiliate sitting at 100-1. I mean, you got guys like Noah Gragson, who is Legacy Motor Club, especially the 42 car, hasn't shown us anything this year. Gragson has made mistakes, but he does have experience at Atlanta. He drove a colleague car last year. He's sitting at 80-1, 85-1 on some books. It's worth a few shekels. Okay. I mean, like I said, I'm playing numbers here. I'm going to bring this up again, but Rod said at the beginning of the show, 13 cautions in one race and 11 cautions in the other. That is calamity. Okay. If these guys at the bottom of the board, I really like betting the guys at the bottom of the board for a top 5, top 3, because it is so difficult to win at Atlanta. But I expect attrition. I expect survival of the fittest or survival of the luckiest. So yeah, Gragson, Burton, even throw McDowell in there, even though he's 66-1 in most shops. Go ahead.
Okay. Awesome. We got Rod's brother in the chat saying, LOL, I'd bet Harvick at 25-1. Yeah, I think you would, buddy. And then we have, he's saying he would not bet Burton 100-1. Yeah, I'm going to have a sprinkle of LaJoy. As of right now, though, that is the only outright that I'm going to take, 50-1 for LaJoy. I'll talk a little bit more about him later. But I'm with Mark here. I really like these top 10s and these top 5 placement props that we're going to get right into. So I'll start us out with one here. And this is the chalk, but we're going to eat it here. It's still plus money, plus 190 for Willie B, top 5 here on Barstool Sportsbooks. He's about plus 100 everywhere else. So I think on Barstool specifically, you're getting a little bit of a value. Won the spring race, had top 6 speed here in the fall, and led laps before having some issues. He's on a heater right now, and the top odds for a reason, boys. It's not a sexy bet, but I think Willie B, top 5, plus 190. I don't know if he's going to win this race, but I still think he's going to be in the mix with the heater he's on. Rod, any thoughts about that or anything else you have in the top 5 or top 10 market you'd like to share?
Yeah, once you get on Willie, you can't. I don't know that he's going to slow down much. Now, look, a couple more races into the season, quite possibly, because he is a fast starter.
Yes.
But this is where you hit him right now. This is where you catch him on it. Can we just talk about Harvick more?
Let her rip, Rod.
The only reason I'm bringing him up one more time is that when you look at these top 10 odds and you catch books sleeping, you got to grab it. Kevin Harvick, top 10, plus 100. It's still plus money for a Kevin Harvick top 10 finish. I mean, we're not running our own book yet, but when we do, Kevin Harvick's odds will not be at plus money for a top 10 finish. That's all the guy does. Like, that's all he does. And so if you can find a Kevin Harvick line at plus money, please take that and run. Don't even look back.
Okay, little K Harv love 2 weeks in a row. Rod, you weren't even on the show last week when we were giving him all types of love. Any thoughts on the bets we've thrown out here, Mark, or anything you want to add to this market?
Yeah, I mentioned this guy earlier, and when we were talking about DFS, Austin Cindric, he's 5-1 for a top 5. He's around the likes of Stenhouse, Erik Jones, Josh Berry within a couple points. he's in a Penske car, guys. We have to get that through our heads. The books have been disrespecting Austin Cindric this year. Yes, I think it has been warranted on some of the tracks we've gone to. He hasn't run very well, but we were in Vegas. He squeaked out a top 10. I think he finished 6th, and he opened up at like 80-1 there, and he's at 50 or 60-1 wherever he's at now. But maybe he's lower than that. But 5-1 for a top 5. He's in a Penske car. That's all I keep going back to. He's 1 of 500. He's got the 3rd best average finish on super speedways last year, and he keeps getting disrespected by the books. I think this goes towards maybe not what Rod was talking to about Harvick with a top 10, but if the books are going to keep lofting this up like a T-ball, right, we're going to keep swinging the bat, swinging the bat, swinging the bat. So I like the 2 car this week.
So speaking of that, can't stop, won't stop. Give me some Alex Bowman, boys.
Here we go. I knew it was coming.
We've been on it for a month straight. I featured him in our Betting Pros article. I featured him here on the show every single week. I felt worse about Alex Bowman last week than I did this week, and I still wrote it, and it still came back favorable. Plus 130 right now, top 10 on Barstool. I'm going to take that every single time. This is a guy who with 4 straight top 10s, 5 if you count the Clash as well. And he's done it on every style of track. Super speedway, count him in. Short track, he'll get it done. Medium track, yeah, he'll get that done as well. 10th in the spring here, top 6 in average speed across both races. And like Rod said earlier, this team has a chip on their shoulder. Alex Bowman was leading the points, and now he's somewhere out in banana land. I think he could just seal himself in the playoffs this week. I like Alex Bowman, top 10 plus 130, boys. I'm going to keep riding the showman. No Elliott Hicks here, but still a fair amount of Alex Bowman love. Rod, anything else in this segment or this market that you're digging?
Now, I love the Alex Bowman one, and I love the fact that, you're right. I think Hendricks is going to come out and say, I've got your Louviers right here and show exactly what they can do without having to cheat. So, no other top 10s. I mean, again, the top 10 market's crazy. Although I will update, I did find him Harvick at plus 150 in a spot. So this is why you shop around. The price has already gone up.
There we go.
But yeah, no other top 10s. What are we going to move to head to heads or?
I have 2 more top 10s. I want some people to consider. I want your guys' feedback if I'm being foolish or not with these. Erik Jones, I've talked about earlier, horrible start to the year, but top 10 in total speed ranking before wrecking in the 500. Atlanta finishes 14th and 4th last season. So kind of right in that range, 12th in total speed in the spring, 14th in the fall. How do you feel about Erik Jones here? Mark, any thoughts? Can you get on that Jones kid, or are you just going to let him kind of come back to life on his own terms?
I think I can be convinced, and you may have just convinced me to get on Erik Jones. I don't love, I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't love the number at a top 10, right? I told you before this, I think the top 10 market is broken, especially on super speedways, and I understand why they're doing it, but they've significantly declined. So yes, I do like Erik Jones. If you can find him at a good number, possibly top Chevy, that's probably a pretty big number sitting out there, maybe a top 5, like you mentioned. He finished 4th last year at Atlanta. But I just can't get behind the top 10. Sorry, Seth.
Okay. And no, that's fine. Rod, can you get behind me on my possible top 10 of Corey LaJoie plus 210 at Barstool? Again, I don't love the number. I wish it was a little bit juicier, but top 17 in average finish this season. Spring 2022, 5th place at Atlanta 1. Fall 2022, 13th in total speed, led those laps. There was a second where I think we were all texting in the group chat, oh boys, this is the Corey LaJoie W we've been waiting for. It wasn't. But can he get a top 10 this season, Rod? He's been so consistent, winning us a lot of money on DraftKings. Can he do it here in the betting market as well?
I don't know. I hope you have a volleyball with the handprint on it, because you're going to be on that island alone for a while.
Okay.
I'm sorry. But here's the thing, like top 10 markets, just like Ryan said, that for the most part, it's broken. Like you gotta basically find the right ones in there. And it's hard. It's hard to bet top 10s and feel good about it, especially on a place like Atlanta.
Okay. We got Ryan Helms back in the chat saying Dylan top 10 plus 190. Ryan, we appreciate you hanging out with us tonight,
Absolutely,
bringing your
dude.
insight, man. Hope you guys are all subscribed to the channel who are tuning in for the first time. Give us a thumbs up if you enjoy this type of content. Let's move now into this head-to-head market here. And I'm going right back to Corey LaJoie here. And I could not believe, like, this was one that I was so happy was out there. Todd Gillen versus Corey LaJoie. LaJoie minus 125, Gillen minus 105. And this is what I'm saying. What are we even doing offering this? Like, what are we even doing? Todd Gillen does not have the reps as a NASCAR driver to be matched up against Corey LaJoie. This is one of LaJoie's best tracks, if not his best track. Gillen, like, he was okay here, but average finish 22 last season. Like why is this even a bet? I'm going to take LaJoie. I'm going to ride the juice here. Mark, any thoughts on Mr. LaJoie?
Yeah, I think this matchup, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think this is absolutely bonkers. I don't bet matchups on super speedways, so I don't have a matchup for you. But I will say, whenever the books give us this matchup, it does not matter what track type we are on. You take Corey LaJoie. Actually, couple of years ago, it was flip-flopped. You always take the 38 car versus LaJoie. I think that's flipped now, especially at Atlanta when you got a guy that had the speed ranking of a top-tier team in Corey LaJoie at Atlanta and could have won except for Mickey Mouse put him in the wall. But I think you're on the right side of this one. Absolutely.
Rod, can you ride with me for Corey LaJoie one more time here, my friend? And after that, who are you on in the matchups?
Well, you know the company policy, and you just flashed it on the screen. It is Corey LaJoie all day long. So yes, thank you, Cody, for joining us. Yes, I will be home soon, honey. Just hold on. I'll be back soon. Don't worry. You know where I'm at least. This Todd Gilliland one. Sometimes I feel like the books just like look at a name and go, oh yeah, they talked about this on the broadcast. Maybe the bettors will try to chase after this one. And, especially giving them the line that they're giving him. It's like, really? Okay, whatever. But yeah, I definitely take the LaJoie on this one. So company policy for us as well is to fade Kyle Larson on super speedways. We already touched on it earlier, but they've got William Byron and Kyle Larson matched up in this. Larson's at plus 100 and William Byron's at minus 130. You only pay the juice if you lose, right, Cody? So minus 130 is not even that big of a bite to take in a matchup that, you're gotten one of the hottest drivers in the garage right now versus a guy who probably doesn't even want to be on this track this weekend because he doesn't like super speedway style racing. So give me the William Byron side of this Hendricks matchup.
I'm on that. I hadn't seen that one, Rod, but I like that one. I'm following you there. The last one I have for us here, Brad Keselowski versus Bubba Wallace. Brad K, top 10 speed at Daytona, fastest average speed at the end of Atlanta 1 last season, top 11 average speed in the fall. So Brad K, he's been good here. He has the pedigree, 56% top 10 rate here. Doesn't mean as much as it used to at Atlanta, of course. Bubba, though, I know you were on him a little bit earlier, Mark, but he was slow at Atlanta too. And I really weigh that. No top 10s here in his eight starts as well. So I'm fading Bubba a little bit, and I'm going to ride Brad Keselowski over him. Any thoughts on that or any other bets you want to throw in tonight, my friend?
Yeah, I think anytime you bet on Brad Keselowski to super speedway, you're doing something right, or at least you probably and you will be on the right side of a bet no matter what happens if he gets caught up in a wreck. So I don't mind fading Bubba Wallace if you are going to take Brad K. One thing I wanted to point out, and something we haven't talked about yet, is manufacturer bets. So I don't typically love manufacturer bets on a week-to-week basis, but this week, if you look at some of the guys like Logano and Blaney, where they have better odds to finish top 4 than they do for a top 3 or a top 5. I think that's what you have to eye. Like, guys, you were talking about Erik Jones. He's 18-1 to be top Chevy. I mean, he gets that 4th place finish again. I mean, who cares who finishes in the top 3? As long as it's not a Chevy, you got an 18-1 ticket in your hand, right? And then when you get to the Toyotas, you got guys like Truex, who is almost 5-1 to finish ahead of a few other drivers. So I actually was pleasantly surprised when I looked at the manufacturer odds this week because they just looked a little more juicy than just taking these guys top 3 or top 5. So I like them.
Okay. All right. Mark's pivoting there to some manufacturing props. Rod, anything else from you for the good of the order?
No, I think I'm tapped out. There'll be a lot more, obviously, for that. Although I do like to throw out fun car number.
Yes, let's go.
Let's do it.
All right. So the race number winner. So if we're all, I would like actually to toss out under 16.5. I know that we like us some Ross Chastain. I mean, not Ross Chastain, but William Byron to try to win this. But I think Chastain. You talked about Cindric earlier. We can throw out
Harvick, Keselowski.
Harvick, Keselowski is
Blaney.
in there.
Corey LaJoy, baby. I got to take it
You
now.
can't get away from him.
Kyle Busch is in there. I mean, there's some heavy hitters, right?
Both RFK guys. Well, I guess just Brad, but yeah.
Just Brad. Yeah. I mean, and then you creep on into some of the lesser known, but I mean, there's some heavy hitters in that under 16.5, and that's minus 113. I mean, the only other one that you might want to sneak in is under 11.5. That's plus 132, but that's really if you're committed to a Chastain or a Cindric or a Harvick or a Busch, in that, or Denny for that matter.
There we go. We got it in the chat. Rod is the number king. Rod
I
is
wouldn't
an
argue
awesome
that.
human being. I wouldn't argue
Or
either
that
one
one
of
either.
those. Yeah. Hey, we appreciate everyone tuning in tonight. If you guys enjoy this content, subscribe to the channel. Come back and hang out with us each and every Thursday night, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to be here getting you locked and loaded. We also have our fantasy football podcast and, of course, our PGA podcast as well. So make sure you're tuning in here. Find Rod over on the NASCAR Gambling Podcast. Episodes 5 days a week, Rod. You're staying busy over there.
5 days a week. Me and Cody see each other more than anybody I ever see in my life. So it's all good.
All right. Love to hear that. And then Mark, where can we find you and best support you throughout the remainder of the 2023 season? And thank you again for gracing us with your presence, my friend.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. On Twitter, on the Bird app, at Skybox NASCAR, we have a weekly podcast, me and my buddy at Rory Picks. It's called the Layin Coin Podcast. This week, we're recording on Friday night, so podcast will be up Saturday morning. You'll have a crisp 6 hours to get it in before the truck race. But we got a full-time job over here, so we're doing what we can. I had a great time coming on with you guys. I really did my best with the DFS stuff. So I hope you guys.
You were great, man. You were
bring
great.
something from it. So I had a great time. You guys are awesome.
Absolutely. You guys will definitely see more of Mark here later in the season. So subscribe. Make sure you're tuning in for that. And we'll be back. Until then, if you have more NASCAR questions, drop them in the comments of this video. We'll make sure we get to them, or find us on Twitter, and we'll interact with you all day long, baby. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks again, and we'll see you soon.